欢迎收看今天的汉天新闻，我是张潇。首先来看国际方面的消息。日前，当地警方在英国一座工业园内的一辆集装箱卡车里发现了39具尸体，引发了广泛的震惊。根据调查，日前得知这39人都是中国公民，8人为女性，31人为男性，其中1个还是孩子。然而，现在还不知道这群人是从哪里来，要到哪里去，为什么会集体被困在车中？卡车司机是一名来自北爱尔兰的25岁男子，已经因涉嫌谋杀被捕。英国警方表示，他们面临的疑问远远多于答案，可能需要长期复杂的工作才能得出结果。
Police here in Essex now say they believe that all 39 bodies inside of that container are Chinese nationals, 31 men and 8 women, all of them adults. It may be a while yet, though, before we know their identities. Police brought both the truck and the container here to this dock area in order to remove those bodies, but they say they have to complete autopsies to figure out the cause of death before they can make any positive identifications. Meanwhile, prosecutors in Belgium have opened up a human trafficking investigation to try to figure out who sent that container across the English Channel and where exactly the people were loaded inside of it. The CEO of the port in Zeebrugge, Belgium, where this container came from, told local media there he thinks it is extremely unlikely that anyone got inside that container at the port. That's because refrigeration containers, like the one in this case, are sealed airtight, and those seals are checked before they're loaded onto the ship. As for the 25-year-old driver of the truck from Northern Ireland who was arrested, police say they will hold him for another 24 hours at least. He is not facing any charges thus far, and the maximum amount of time police can hold him without charge is 4 days. Reporting in Tilbury, England, I'm Scott McLean.
包括美国国防部部长在内的高级官员日前指责由土耳其支持的叙利亚叛军犯有战争罪。9日开始，土耳其以其反恐行动作为幌子，出兵叙利亚对库尔德人武装发起了和平之权军事行动。战争必然伴随着人员伤亡，这是不可避免的情况。然而，随着国际社会的调查，更多真相露出水面。一些视频和资料显示，叙利亚叛军对平民和战俘进行非人道的待遇，故意导致伤亡人数直线上升。
The gruesome videos keep coming, but not just the normal brutality of war, something uglier, more radical. Scenes of the Syrian rebels Turkey is backing, abusing here the corpse of dead Syrian, Kurdish female and male fighters Tuesday near Tal Abyad. Rebel leaders said they had arrested and would punish the fighters behind this. A US official has said these fighters, backed by Turkey, are mostly extremist, former ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And from the start, they were accused of savagery. This is the widely circulated video of the murder of Kurdish activist Havrin Khalaf, her bodyguards beaten before execution. We found their vehicle heavily shot up and discarded on the highway. Startling acts of violence like this have made many reassess exactly who Turkey is using to try and execute its goals here in northeastern Syria. An autopsy report CNN can't independently verify says the widely travelled activist was dragged by her hair and beaten with a blunt object on her head before being shot to death. Some of the videos the rebels have posted of themselves add support to the theory that Turkey was in such a hurry to build militia to fight for them, it didn't vet out extremists. It may now be liable for war crimes.
We've seen several incidents which we consider war crimes.
I've seen the reports as well. We're trying to monitor them. They are horrible, and if accurate, and I assume that they are accurate, they would be war crimes, as best as I know the law of land warfare. So I think all those need to be followed up on. I think those responsible should be held accountable. In many cases, it would be the government of Turkey should be held accountable for this, because we cannot allow those things to happen.
Turkey and the rebels have rejected many accusations and often post media of how life has returned to normal under their control. And some of the behaviour here, though, posted on the rebels' own Telegram channels, isn't that distant to ISIS's old videos. Turkey has loyal rebel forces in Idlib province, which Western intelligence has said is now infiltrated by Al-Qaeda, but it is unclear which units of rebels Turkey is using. Will these men stop when Turkey tells them to? Will Turkey tell them to? And what sort of society will they build? Will it have a place for or reject ISIS? Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Erbil, Northern Iraq.
智利抗议示威活动已持续1周，数万名抗议者进入首都圣地亚哥，设置路障、纵火，并与防暴警察发生冲突。总统皮涅拉于当地时间22日晚10时在全国电视讲话中公开道歉，并宣布一系列的经济改革措施。但抗议并没有停息，截止24日，抗议引发的冲突已造成18人死亡。示威人群现在喊出口号，要求总统下台。
Started today as a peaceful demonstration of workers, students, thousands of people, more than 200,000 according to the authorities in Chile. Then when tried to arrive toward the presidential palace, La Moneda, started violence. The people wanted to go to La Moneda and the military police did stop them with a lot of violence, with the pepper spray, with water. They threw it to everywhere. The people responded with throwing stones. And now this is the main street of Chile, the Alameda, and this is a lot of people, but all the shops are closed. There are barricades everywhere. The military police there, they move the people. They didn't let people to protest anymore. And this is, we can say, it's a battle that had been going on during the whole day here in Chile, a battle that nobody expected a week ago when President Piñera said this was an oasis in Latin America. Obviously, this is not an oasis right now. Looks more like a jungle, and Chileans are protesting, asking President to resign, some of them, and asking another people to make very important changes. They said the announcement that President Piñera made last night are not enough. They say there are 30 years of inequality, and they want to change that right now. Go back to you.
当地时间23日，朝鲜最高领导人金正恩在国内视察时，非常罕见地批评了自己的父亲。他在参观金刚山观光景点时，将金刚山视为韩朝关系的象征，是错误的观念。只是拆除金刚山上韩国设施，并以朝鲜方式重建。在分析其发言的政治意义的同时，联合国日前公布了一份新的调查报告，内容显示，朝鲜因金正恩的独裁命令，花费大量人力与资源在军事开发和政治宣传上，人民生活质量无法得到保障，现在面临着严重的人道主义危机。
Kim Jong-un on a tear. The dictator not pleased with the state of disrepair at his famed Mount Kumgang resort, a once posh hideaway featuring gorgeous canyons, spectacular waterfalls, and beaches. Maybe it was the public presence for the first time in several months of his alluring wife, Ri Sol-ju, that got him anxious on this visit. Kim compared Mount Kumgang to a refugee camp, his news agency saying the buildings were, quote, built like makeshift tents in a disaster-stricken area, and ordering that the property be spruced up.
Kim Jong-un likes fancy things. He's built a ski resort, he's built amusement parks, and so he has a sort of a standard of luxury that he's familiar with.
A standard that has gone by the wayside at Mount Kumgang. It was once the crown jewel of joint cooperation between North and South Korea. Built with a lot of South Korean resources, South Korean tourists would flock to the retreat until 2008, when a South Korean tourist was killed.
The lady woke up one morning, she went wandering down the beach, and apparently she wandered too far and was shot and killed by a North Korean sentry.
At which point, South Korea banned its citizens from going there. Kim's so upset over the state of Mount Kumgang, he said the almost unthinkable, criticizing the, quote, very wrong dependent policy of the predecessors, an implicit jab at his late father, Kim Jong-il, who initiated the Mount Kumgang project in 1998.
He's feeling very confident. And to take on these new titles, to implicitly criticize his father's development strategy. There is definitely a sense that he is building himself up as perhaps the most important person in North Korea since his grandfather, the founder of the country.
This as the UN's top human rights monitor for North Korea has issued a scathing report saying nearly half of Kim's people are undernourished.
They will do anything it takes to find food for themselves and their families. During the worst times in North Korea, they ate weeds and the bark off trees. If that's what it takes, they will steal. They're desperate.
While Kim spends hundreds of millions on the development of nuclear warheads, submarine-launched missiles, and other delivery systems, the UN says jarringly that because of the food crisis, 30,000 North Korean children face an increased risk of death.
This is a regime that invests in high-risers, nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and now, yes, recently, high-class resorts. All they bring in the eyes of Kim Jong-un is more prestige to the regime at the expense of sacrificing the people of North Korea.
日前，美国 CNN 独家披露了一条令人担心的消息：国会议员伊丽莎白·沃伦日前要求白宫就也门问题作出解释。据了解，一批由美国生产的高精尖武器日前也在也门不断变化的战争形势中落入了被认为极其危险的反对派手中。他们将如何使用这些武器，导致怎样的后果，都引发了广泛的担忧。
Separatist militia in southern Yemen and armed groups loyal to the internationally recognized Yemeni government. Just a few months ago, these forces were on the same side, backed by the Saudi-led coalition, supplied with US weapons. Now they've turned those very weapons against each other, and terror groups are exploiting the resultant chaos. In January, we traveled through Yemen, documenting the proliferation of US weaponry there. Like a graveyard of American military hardware. And this is not under the control of coalition forces. This is in the command of militias. This in violation of the law governing US arms sales, which says they can't be passed on. In our original investigation, we identified American-made armored vehicles, which had been sold by the US to the UAE under a 2014 arms sale contract and had fallen into the hands of armed groups. 6 months on, and we spot one of the Emirati-supplied vehicles, the US-made Max Pro, being paraded by a UAE-backed militia known as the Giants Brigade. Giants Brigade forces have a new mission. Here on their way to the strategic port city of Aden to fight against the very legitimate government the Emiratis armed them to restore. They are now fighting with the separatists. The Giants Brigade did not respond to CNN's request for comment, but the UAE hasn't denied supplying them with US-made vehicles. The Giants Brigade, they told us earlier this year, are part of Yemeni forces that fight the Houthis on the ground and under direct supervision. The supervision has failed. Half a year on, as fighting between separatists and government forces escalates, we set out to find out what happened to the American MRAP vehicles. In the aftermath of our original reporting, we received death threats, so we haven't been able to return to Yemen. But working with local journalists, we have been able to verify that amongst the military vehicles being used to wage Yemen's escalating civil conflict are those that we identified in the US-UAE contract in our initial reporting. Our team traveled to Shabwa, east of the Yemeni capital Sana'a. A Yemeni army commander told CNN in this far-flung war zone, US military technology is a game changer, whichever hands it ends up in.
They are lethal and powerful weapons that the militias were using against the people. American weaponry is deadly. If the militias or others have them, they may be the winning side.
CNN also filmed this. An armored vehicle captured by forces loyal to the legitimate government of Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi. It's a US-made BAE Cayman. Inside, we found the serial number of the AC system made by Real Time Laboratories at their facility in Mississippi, USA. We contacted Real Time Laboratories, who confirmed it had been supplied under a US government contract, but said they couldn't comment on what the government may have eventually done with the vehicle. Already the terror group ISIS has stepped in to exploit the chaos. launching a campaign of multiple suicide bombings, the group's first successful strikes in over a year, with a promise of more to come. After years of drone attacks and the US concentrating its military might on degrading their presence, terror groups once more developing a foothold here. The US is a key ally to the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and both countries have spent time and effort lobbying DC decision makers. High on the agenda, rolling back the move by US lawmakers earlier this year to obstruct arms sales to both countries.
There is no reason for the United States to be involved in this war in Yemen. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, but it is also a national security catastrophe.
Triggered by CNN's original reporting.
Again, a recent CNN report that suggests that weapons that have been provided to UAE and to Saudi Arabia have wound up in the hands of Houthis, that they have been traded and been used on both sides of that conflict.
We have not authorized Saudi Arabia or the Emirates to retransfer any of this equipment to other parties on the ground.
Publicly, the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been struggling to explain how and why forces loyal to them have opened fire on each other. Worse, as we've learned, that they're using proprietary US technology to do it with. CNN has reached out to both the Emirati and Saudi Arabian governments for comment. The Saudis didn't respond, but the UAE told us that there were no instances when US-made equipment was used without direct UAE oversight, except for 4 vehicles that were captured by the enemy. CNN found US-made vehicles being used in attacks on key locations and personnel within the US-backed legitimate government of Yemen. This in spite of the fact that the UAE told us no weaponry was being used without their direct oversight. We also contacted the Pentagon, who told us there is an ongoing investigation into our previous findings. For how much longer or what they'll do with it, they wouldn't say. All the while, the war in Yemen rages on, more lethal than ever. Ne'em El-Bagher, CNN, London.
休息一下，马上回来。